Welcome back to the Lakescape Podcast. I'm joined with Jacob from Lake Martin Dock Company, the marine construction arm of Lakescape. And what we're talking about today is fundamentally winter maintenance and all the different things that you need to be worried about on your lakescape. One of those things is top of the list is something we've done as Lake Martin Dock Company for years, and it's a part of the Lakescape portfolio, which is lift servicing. A lot of folks, they buy a lift, it works, and they kind of set it and forget it. But honestly, there's an annual component of maintenance that is important to you to maintain that lift. Can you talk a little bit about what that is and why it's important for our customers?
Most boat lift manufacturers recommend servicing the boat lift, greasing it, checking all the pulleys at least once a year. So essentially what we do, we come out typically in the winter and we inspect the lift, grease all the pulleys, grease fittings, and especially on older style lifts that have pulleys and belts, we'll check those pulleys, check the belts. That's one of the main wear items we see is those belts. Make sure all pulleys are straight. And like I said, grease the lift. Another big thing we see is grease fittings actually be missing. So we'll replace those as well if those are needed. And just things like that, touch on that. Inspect cables, that's another big thing. Cables fraying, you don't want to let that get too far and then have a problem. So if you check it frequently, we can keep an eye on that.
We service all the customers on the lake. So and a lift service isn't one vendor. You guys service every lift that's on this lake.
Correct. Yeah.
And
so,
how does that work relative to, what are some of the interesting things you've seen over the years relative to, here's a brand new lift that's maybe a year old, and there's some that are 20 years old. What are some of the things that you run into and we've had to work with customers to help get fixed?
Ran into a lot of, especially on the older lifts. So most newer style lifts, they'll have stainless steel cables, things like that, whereas the older lifts, galvanized, they have chains, galvanized shackles. I've ran into some pretty bad rust situation on those we were pretty surprised the lift was hanging on in general. So those are definitely some of the big ones that, we kind of push to the customer. We need to get those fixed, soon.
It's probably just as important for our customer to understand, servicing a lift extends the life of that lift. It's not, hey, I need to replace your lift. It's just, like you said, hey, replace these cables, maybe a shackle, maybe there's a belt or something. But even as an old lift, if it's doing the job for the boat that's in the lift, then there's no need to replace it. You just want to maintain it so it's safe. We don't need to drop your family into the water when they don't want to go and things like that. So really, it's just one of those things where it's just you need to remind yourself that this is part of that annual maintenance for your entire lakescape. That's really important for the safety of you and your family.
Right, yeah, it's just one of those things, once you get a boat lift, it's one of those things you need to dedicate. You need to make sure you inspect it, get it checked every year, just make sure it's safe. Because, ultimately you're trusting your investment of your boat and your family when they get on the boat, with that lift. So definitely something you want to make sure is safe.
So one of the new services from Lakescape is we're now offering to wrap the boat and for winter time. So a lot of our customers have found that, hey, I can leave my boat in my lift over the winter, which we just talked about. They want to service the lift, make sure it's in good shape for next season. My boat's in the lift, so I don't have to take it off-site. I might not even own a trailer. I don't have to pay off for off-site storage. But I also don't want leaves and all the kinds of things in that. So obviously it's very popular here on Lake Martin, specifically to shrink wrap your boat for the winter. So that's a new service that Lakescape is doing, and your team is the team that's doing a lot of that work. Even if we're not doing it for our customer that's watching this, what are some of the key things that are really important when you get your boat wrapped? Because, I see the signs on the telephone poles of people come wrap your boat, and then obviously you have companies like us that are professionally and insured and will do it probably correctly. No matter who you pick, what are the important things for somebody to ask that question of, hey, I'm going to get my boat wrapped. What questions should I ask before they come out and do that for me?
You need to check and make sure they're doing what we call support poles up underneath the vinyl. So you're not just putting the vinyl over a boat and shrink wrapping it and letting it touch the boat where it may. You need to make sure it has the poles, support poles where they need to be to get it over the windshields of the boat so there's no hard corners, things like that. Typically on those support poles, you want to make sure they're using some kind of cap on the poles to protect the flooring of the boat. Otherwise, it'll just be a 2x4 sitting straight on the dock, and you don't want that. That cause damage to carpet and damage to sea deck over time. And then the bands. So when you do it, it attaches to a poly band that goes around the boat and goes across the support poles. Need to make sure that those are getting put on and getting put on tight, because if those aren't on tight, then you're basically not doing anything when it comes to wrapping the boat. Wind can pick the cover off and everything like that. So it's not just the shrink wrap that's holding it on there. It's not just it tightening up. It's the bands. Those have to be on there correctly.
So the bands are kind of like the skeleton,
Correct.
and then you put that over the top. Obviously, it's important to clean your boat before you do this. Keep it as dry as, have it dry before we arrive or your team arrives to wrap a boat. We also offer Xanigo for a mold preventer. I personally, now it's been over 2 years, I think, we've used that product, where when we opened up our boat in the spring, literally no mold, no anything. It was like the day we put it away. So like you said, if the wrap's done correctly and if you cleaned your boat correctly, you're going to get exactly what you expect in the spring, versus your first time back to the lake and you unwrap the boat and you've got a lot of work ahead of you. Yeah. So it's kind of exciting what we're able to kind of continue that for our customers and get their boat wrapped. The next thing is we kind of climb. We've maintained our lift, we've maintained our boat. Now we're thinking about what other things in the property do we need to do. So on the lakescape perspective, we've added property cleanup. So one of the headaches is, the water goes down and now there's a lot of sticks and unfortunately trash that's accumulated over the summer. We can get that cleaned up for folks. And with the landscape division, obviously we'll winterize the irrigation pumps, kind of continue to follow that up into the yard. And it actually comes back around to the wraps again, but a lot of folks didn't realize this, but we also offer wraps of furniture. So all of that outdoor furniture, which is terribly expensive in this day and age, get it clean, get it shrink wrapped, and it'll be ready to go in the spring as well. So a lot of those things, in addition to your lawn care and all those things, are things that we're doing as a part of the Lakescape umbrella of services, which is kind of exciting. And the other thing we added to that, which has always been a struggle for a lot of our customers, that this is their second home, is this time of year, it's more about football than it is going to the lake. Right. And so they've kind of checked out. And, next thing you know, it's now January and there's a hard freeze. How do I know that my house is in good shape? And is anybody checking on it? Maybe you're lucky and you've got a neighbor that doesn't have anything better to do and checks on everybody's house for them. But we actually have a home services product now with a different group that's doing that for us. And they'll come out to your property twice a month. They're going to walk the property, check for any trees down, anything that's gone on, and then they'll actually go inside of your home, check the thermostats, make sure the hot water heater's doing what it's supposed to be doing and not adding water into the house. Check the pans and the AC and make sure it don't have anything overflowing or stopped up. Check the water meter, and again, and do that with a little 360 camera so we can share that video with our customers so they can kind of have a good feeling about, I don't need to drive and go check on the lake place. And so that's another kind of exciting it's an annual service that we offer, but obviously in the wintertime, it becomes more important to our customers. I kind of touched on it earlier. Wintertime is a good time to do a lot of maintenance things on the dock. So I touched on Xanigo, and kind of we talked about checking on the lift, but we also have a lot of routine maintenance things that's easier to do with the water down. Can you talk about some of those services that your service team does in the wintertime, and kind of, what are those top three services that a lot of our customers will utilize us for that kind of maintenance in the wintertime?
Yeah, so, like we talked about the lift services in the winter, included with that is a pier inspection. So not only will they inspect the lift and check the lift, they will check the entire dock. The reason we typically do it in the winter is because the water's down. We can see under the dock, stairs are exposed. Those are the main things we do on the initial inspection. From there, anything the crew finds, which typically the main things are stairs. Once the water's down, it gives us a really good look at the stairs just to see if those need to be secured or anything like that, or do Titans. Those are another big thing we do in the winter so we can add them all the way down the stairs. Floating docks, bands and chain kits on floating docks is another big wear item we see. Pretty much the crew will go and inspect that, and they'll write a report, give it back to our estimate department, and we will create an estimate and when we send you the report saying what's wrong, saying what needs to be addressed, we'll also send you an estimate with it for any repairs we need, so that way you know exactly what needs to be done. Some things we come across don't necessarily need to be done right now, but they will be brought to your attention. So cables is a big one. On boat lifts, we see some cables, they're starting to show little signs where nothing that definitely needs to be replaced, but we just make note of it so customer can keep their eye on it, and we can keep our eye on it, and then when the time comes we can replace that. So things like that, those are the main things we touch on. And pretty much a lot of joist up under docks, things like that, mildew, mold, things like that. We'll get in there, replace those in the winter. It's a lot easier to get it replaced in the winter. With that being said, we can do it in the summer. We'll do it any time of the year, but that is the typical time we like to do it the best. It gives us the best view of everything, so we can get you the most accurate estimate and accurate detail of what needs to be repaired.
Awesome. And you mentioned mold and mildew. So with the water down and we get under the dock, is that a good time for us to come in with like a Xanigo product and kind of remediate any existing mold, get it cleaned, and then treat that wood underneath, and maybe get a little more life out of the dock, right?
Yes, exactly. So we do offer that service as well, as in addition to putting the mildew and mold preventer on the boat before it's wrapped, which is an option we do as well. In furniture, we also can do the dock itself. We do underneath the dock to try to prevent, because that's the biggest thing, wood around water. There's going to be mold, there's going to be mildew.
Right.
So anything you can do to prevent that will extend the life of your dock drastically.
Awesome.
So we do offer that. That is one of our big things we do as well.
Hopefully this gives a little bit of an overview of the services that Lakescape offers to kind of maintain your property year round, but specifically in the wintertime when it's time to put all the toys away and go back to your normal life. So if it's a simple inspection, a safety inspection of your dock, and maintaining your lift to all the way through wrapping both your boat, your outdoor furniture, winterizing the house, winterizing your irrigation system, keeping an eye on your property for you, and treating, for mold and other things. Basically, Lakescape's got all of those aspects covered, and there's a lot of things we didn't talk about today that we obviously can provide as well. So if you have any questions on any of these specific products and services, or have questions about how to do it yourself, just comment below, ask us a question. We'd be glad to help you. There's a lot of folks that enjoy doing this themselves, as well as those that just want us to take care of it for them. Thanks again for joining us, and we'll see you next time.